This is the Roger Orozco Show.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. The star, the only star, Ashton. Hey, hey, Boo. Today we're gonna do a New Year's Eve special. Yeah, oh yeah, it's the paperwork. So we were gonna do a top 10 countdown of what was going on in our videos this year, what the facts and the information, and our opinions. If we did get anything wrong throughout the year, please let us know, and we will fix it. Right, Ash? Are you good with that? Okay. So as I was going to say, we were going to do a top 10. Right, Ash? We got up early, we were writing a bunch of notes down. But man, there was so much that happened. It ended up being almost 50. So we're going to do as quick as we can the top 25 in no particular order. And a lot of them we won't say anything. We're just going to read out, some of the stuff that happened. And anyway, so Happy New Year's to everyone. Ashton, you ready to go? Top 25 from our videos of 2023. All right, guys, so let's begin, Ash. Okay, we'll start with the Teachers Union contract. One of the worst of all time for the taxpayers on a 4-1 vote. Mrs. Alanis is the only one that didn't vote for it. She made statements about what our kids getting out of it, what our parents getting out of it. They should have all said the same thing, but they didn't. They gave away a lot. Our school board on December 13th of this year, just a few weeks ago, was told that they are spending more than what's coming in. Think about that. That's a big deal. Their adopted budget coming into this 23-24 year, they have our reserves down at 6.56%. There was a board policy after the previous board had made it mandated or wanted it. It had to be a minimum of 10. It should be a lot more, but there was something going on to where it had to be 10%. Anyway, make a long story short, there's a board policy of 10%, and they are at 6.56%. They're not following board policy. Some of the board's constituents told board members before they signed this contract to go to fact finding. So fact finding is basically finding the facts, getting all the facts. What do you think, Ash? You got to get all the facts, and we were hoping that they would go to fact finding. So first of all, so they would understand the process because it gets threatened every year. Second of all, get all the facts, man. That contract was horrendous, but they still did it, and they did not go to fact finding. Another that was actually a 4-1. When they signed the contract, they didn't go to fact finding. So thank you, Mrs. Alanis, for not signing that contract. The same meeting, December 13th, board member Alanis, she asked a question to school services. There was a gentleman there, Matt from school services, giving the presentation on the numbers from Selma Unified. And Mrs. Alanis, she asked a simple question after some of the presentation, that if they would have went to fact finding, it would have helped. Selma Unified would have been in good shape in regards to the union contract, the teachers union contract. And what was said is his response was, you guys had the data points to support your position. So these guys, the 4 members, not only did they not listen to the constituents, they ended up making a horrible decision, and they didn't have to. They had the data to push back, but I think they were also scared and going to do it anyway. But it was a great observation by Mrs. Alanis, a great question. Fedor, Kessler, Sahota, and Mark Medina should be ashamed of themselves for what they have done to our district financially for the future. Another one, the taxpayers in this town were asked to tax themselves for Measure L. I was there when they did it, and there was a promise made. If you're going to ask for Measure L, you're not going to go over 8%. They called it 7-1, one retro. So these 4 new board members, by okaying the new union contract, there was in my opinion, a backdoor raise. So you had 8%. They moved the salary schedule. What I've been told is 8%. I'm not sure if that's true, but I've been told it's 8%. Oh, that's awesome, Ashton. Good job. 8%. And then they gave out bonuses. This is after Measure L passed, and they told the community to tax themselves. That's a big deal. It's a very big deal. going over some notes I wrote down for this. Representative. My representative made a comment during this Measure L salary payout. No, not payout. They were going to cover a salary out of Measure L money, which they had promised the citizens, the taxpayers, the people, that they would not do that. Are you okay? And so when they brought a salary, I think it was a partial salary coming out of Measure L, but it doesn't even really matter. $1 is too much because you made a promise to the people. A board member at that time, Mrs. Alaniz, board president, she told the rest of the board members, the community was told no money would go to a salary. That was a promise we made the people. But guess what? The other 4 board members again, Fedor, Medina, Kessler, and Sahota, voted to break that promise to allow it to happen. And even worse, Mr. Fedor sets himself up as this is who Mr. Fedor is now on that board. He makes the comment after Mrs. Alaniz that he was concerned too, but that he went to the district staff, and they told him that they could do that. So like, hey, it's not illegal. We could use that money, but the problem was you promised the people, us. But Fedor said, okay, after they told me that, I'm okay with it. Fedor, you work for us. You forgot that. You forgot you work for us. You haven't been working for us. That's horrendous. And that's who you are, pal. And I like Joe, but that's who he's become. He got on the board, and now he's, in my opinion, totally fake. The same time now, Mark Medina, he also mentions that he can't justify this union contract to the community. But Mark Medina still votes for it. Why did you vote for it if you know you can't justify it? Horrendous. And also now, there was a board member that told one of us that the scores are so bad. Ashton, listen to this. This is how ridiculous it is. That the scores are so bad, our state test scoring is so bad and we're so low that let's give the teachers union, the teachers, a lot more money and maybe they'll try harder. The problem with that is the scores went down even further in ELA, went up a little bit in math. But the problem is they already were among, on average, at the top of the pay scale, man, compared to districts around us. And now you want to give them more and maybe they'll try harder. That's just ridiculous. Whatever. Summer school. Oh, man. So, summer school. These guys, Ashton, listen to this, man. These guys gave out $3,000 a week for the teachers that worked 24 hours. Some of them worked a little bit more at the higher level, at the high school level. But on average, it was 24 hours of work for $3,000 a week for summer school. That's what they did. That's what this board okayed. All right, guys. So as we keep going, after going back and forth with the union leadership, Ashton, about their outrageous contract demands on our school district, one of their head leadership members told me, hey, Roger, it's our job to fight for this money. It's the board's job to say no. And I was like, wow, you're right. Going on, the teachers union earlier in the year organized a town hall meeting for the Selma community to help guide them to be an effective advocate for the community. So I actually went to that first meeting. It was pretty ridiculous. They wouldn't shake my hand, and it was noticeable, or it was in reality what it seemed like was a union ploy. As they're fighting over their contract negotiations, it was another ploy to hit that board, right? And the board, all they've done is kiss their ass. It doesn't even matter. They don't even realize that it doesn't matter to the unions. Another ploy was that other unions now started to attend our meetings, and they came in one group, and they're cheering on and supporting our teachers union negotiations against our district. Now, they have no business here. They're from other districts, but why were they here? and this is my personal opinion, is if Selma can have really crappy state testing scores and get paid at this very high number, one of the top paid around, that's what they want. You understand, Ashton? So that's what they want. They're like, hey, if our scores are better than Selma, but Selma's way up here on the pay scale, why are we this high? So basically, Selma and the board members who voted for this contract, this horrendous contract, have now allowed all districts to look at Selma as a model. There you go. You have some chocolate there, pal. Anyway, another outrageous waste of taxpayer dollars, man, with this contract and letting the union bully them and push them. And that's what they did. One of the worst things that came out of this year was union members saying that test scores don't matter. The only reason why they would say that is because our test scores suck. I mean, test scores matter. That's how you gauge. Oh, is that good, babe? That's how you gauge if you learn. Horrendous, and that's coming from our people that work in our district for us and our kids. Test scores don't matter. That's what they were saying. Their representatives, some of them. Foggy day schedules. That was another big hang-up for the union contract. They kept talking about it, and they were trying to make a stance, and we won't budge because it's about kid safety, Ashton. That's what they were saying. It was about you. We're never going to budge. But guess what? They got all the money they pretty much wanted, and they did budge. So they gave up their stance on safety for money. That's what it looks like to me. Horrendous. Bunch of lies, man. Let's see. Moving on. Remember, I did this real quick. This is just for New Year's Eve special on the videos. Lots of information. The video started as parents, us, being on political patrol in our schools in our city. So this is hitting the schools because our schools culture has changed back to a very adult-orientated system. And it's horrendous because that just means you're going to do less for our kids later on. So, and then with SUDA, which is the teachers union, they were promoting, they had shirts that said, hey, SUDA Parent Alliance. Well, where is it at? I want to be part of that alliance because I like to hold them accountable. If you're going to say things and do things, you know, hey, have me be part of it. Let me have a voice, SUDA. Right, Ash? Yeah. Well, this is not this. This is Slipknot. Hey, Slipknot rules, man. The big fans, right? Big fans. Korn, Slipknot. We're huge fans. Okay, what else, man? Teacher Appreciation Day. One of the worst things we've ever saw. Again, Ashton. These guys said, hey, come to Schaefer Park. We're having appreciation. And then a couple hours later, you see all over the news and you see on social media they're holding signs. It's about them and their contract. It was like they bullshitted everybody. And after the release of the state test scores, cast as in a meeting as they were talking about it, Mrs. Alanis mentions who's going to be held accountable. Our scores are horrific and we pay a ton of money. It's only fair that the parents expect more from our school district. It's only fair. And Mrs. Alanis says who is going to be held accountable. Guess what? The other four board members sit there in silence, Ashton. They don't say nothing. They didn't say anything. Why? Silence is acceptance. They are so afraid of the teachers union. 4 of them. They are so afraid, Fedor, Medina, Sahota, and Kessler, that they won't even hold anybody accountable. And the teachers are just a symptom of what's been going on in this district. It has been bad management, bad admin for a very long time. And this is my personal opinion. It starts at the top. If the board is afraid, nothing's going to work right. The culture is horrendous right now, and this is my opinion. You have two ex school board members. You have a ex SRO, a guy that's on the school board. He's on the school site council. They're grading the job that we know so far that our school board has been doing. Ash, and guess what? Guess what? Mrs. Alanis, we give her an A, representing us, the people. She works for us. But then you got Fedor, who talked a big game. I work for you. No, you don't. You haven't been, bro. Fedor, Medina, Sahota, and Kessler have been working to appease everybody, the admin, the administration. They have not been working for us. They've had horrendous decisions. And that's my opinion once again. Mr. Bejarano, as a parent, Ashton, Mr. Bejarano had an agenda item put on the agenda, and it was for the wrestling community, a wrestling facility. And he went up there, pounded on the podium, and said, "Our kids deserve it." And every board member should have jumped on it. Only Mrs. Alanis looking to making an action item with no support from anybody else. Now, it ended up being another item, thanks to Mrs. Alanis. I asked my board member, Fedor. Gilbert Lopez asked his board member, Mark Medina. We didn't hear back from them. We asked all of them at one time during the meeting. Bejarano asked them to put it on the agenda. And guess what? Board President Alanis, she was one of the only ones that advocated for it. And when it got put on the agenda, it passed 5-0. But the fight was to get it on that agenda. Once it was on the agenda, it was going to pass because of the community. Mr. Robert Sepulveda, he rallied a lot of community members. He's always been an advocate for wrestling, along with many other people. But it was the agenda item from Mr. Bejarano, and it was with the help of board president. So what people need to know, at the time, this is Board President Alanis, that facility now is on the master plan, but it came from the push from the community, and thankfully Mrs. Alanis understood that she works for the community, and she helped out with that tremendously. The other ones who ended up voting for it were pushed into it by the community pressure, but Mrs. Alanis always will be thankful for her helping the wrestling community. One of the last things. So one of the things that happened, and a lot of people don't know this, but for well over a decade, who knows, maybe even a couple, there had been a spouse from a spouse that worked at the district that was a teacher's spouse that was on the board. So now you kind of, throughout my years in there, I kind of felt like that was why there was such a big push to take care of the union, to have the adults ahead of our children, in my opinion. So when that finally changed this year, it actually seems to have gotten worse. And one of the issues, I believe, is a union stance in there. It feels like Mrs. Kessler is more worried about the adults than our children, just by her little comments she makes. So a lot of people don't know that there had been a spouse on that board for many, many years. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that came out well over a year ago that I was told, a couple of us were told, was that there had been a negotiation of always 3%. So you had union members talking about that before they signed the contract about, hey, we got to be in the top 3. So there was something going on that when I was on the board we didn't know about, but there had always been this thing to keep them in the top 3 and pay. And I actually told the new superintendent on July 17th in the morning this year, I met with him, and I told him that was probably one of the worst things that ever happened to Selma Unified, and why everything had gotten so bad was because a certain group of people knew that they would always be in the top pay. And so I think that led to a lot of relaxation throughout our district. And finally, but definitely not least, Mr. George Rodriguez, a hometown administrator, applied, from what I heard, to be the superintendent of our district. I heard he didn't even get an interview, and he's a hometown hero. Very, very disappointed. And Mr. Rodriguez, I think the community would have rallied behind him, and instead our school district, our board members went outside the district and got someone else, and hopefully he'll do well. But they had a chance to bring in a hometown hero, and I've known Mr. Rodriguez for a very long time, and one of the issues is probably going to be that he won't be controlled, and that's probably going to be a problem with the system. Now you see what the system does. The system, Ashton, has been allowed the status quo, you can call it. So we went from a parent-child-based culture that we had fought for a long time, and we thought it was in place, but now with the weakness of Mr. Fedor and Sahota and Medina, it's changed the culture back to status quo. So not a good thing. Definitely not a good thing. But anyway, Ashton, Happy New Year's. You say Happy New Year's to everybody and wave bye. Hey guys, we'll try to comment back not comment back, but we'll try to do another revised version of this in greater detail later. We were just trying to knock this out for New Year's, as a New Year's Eve special. And anything else, Ash? You want to add anything? Are you cool? You're cool? You're good? Christmas good? Okay. And like I said, the videos are supposed to be for information. We do have some opinions on them. And it's basically holding our elected officials accountable. If we don't do it, if we don't know what's going on, then they're just going to be doing what they're kind of already doing, but we just need more people to know what they are doing to hold them accountable. Right, Ash? All right. Happy New Year's Eve, guys. All right. Thanks. All right. And Happy New Year, right, Boo?
Yeah.
Okay.